177th regular meeting of the Livonia City Council. Tonight is a voting meeting. We will get started with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice President Laura Toy. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice President. Welcome again to the meeting tonight. It's a regular meeting. This will be a voting meeting, and the minutes of this meeting will be approved at the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, October 2nd of 2023. Ms. Nash, will you please take the attendance?
Vice President Toy. Here. Councilmember Barr.
Here.
Councilmember Donovic.
Here.
Councilmember McCullough.
Here.
President Jolly.
Present. We currently have 5 members here. Mr. Morgan is away on family business, and I suspect Ms. McIntyre will be joining us soon. At this time, I would entertain a motion for the minutes of September 6th of 2023.
So moved.
Support.
We have an approving motion by Vice President Toy, support by Mr. Barr. Are there any additions or comments on the minutes from the council? Are there any additions or comments on the minutes from the audience? I see none. Ms. Nash, will you please take the vote on the minutes?
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye.
And I'll note Councilmember McIntyre in attendance.
7:01.
At this time, the council has set aside 30 minutes for audience communication for the audience to speak to us on any items that are not on the agenda this evening. Is there anybody at this time who'd like to speak to the council? Going once, going twice. Hi. Do you want to speak to the council during open communication? Then come on up to the podium. Are you here for an agenda item? Okay.
I was here, or I missed the thing about deer hunting. But that's about it, I think that's right.
Okay, so that's not on our agenda tonight, so if you'd like to talk to the council, you can go to the podium. Now's the time, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Go to the podium if you'd like to speak to us.
My name is Meyer. I live at 16769 Fitzgerald. This deer hunting that you're proposing by sharpshooters, I think is that the best idea for Livonia, not because I don't want the deer called, not because I'm afraid to take deer, but because like in Ann Arbor, it costs $130,000. Where they do it in Texas, they have a special lottery. Everybody puts in so much. That would pay for the insurance. It wouldn't cost the city of Livonia a lot of money. The deer meat and everything else would be accountable. The people would have to take care of it themselves. And it would, if it saved us $100,000 a year, you're going to have the same thing in 4 or 5 years. In the longevity of this, it's going to cost the city of Livonia a tremendous amount of money in tax base. I think it could be used for better things in Livonia. And they could use bow and arrow. They could use crossbow. They don't have to make any noise. It could be done in the wintertime when a lot of our parks are partially closed off and everything else. We'd have to let our Livonia residents know about it. It's been done. It's saved millions of dollars in Texas alone. If we could save the Livonia taxpayers a lot of money, I think it's to our best to represent the people here. And we could also notify the insurance companies that because we are doing this, they can lower their accident for deer damage and everything else. So it might give some of the Livonia people some actual money back instead of having it go the other way. if it saves every one of the Livonia people, I think this is something that should be considered. And it's not going to be a 1 year, 2 or 3 year term. We also have a problem with a lot of raccoon and possum at night.
It's time, Jim.
And these raccoon and possum, I've caught 22 of them since July, and I haven't had traps out. I don't. The DNR says you can take care of mischievous animals that are taking care of your garbage and everything else. In 5 days, I've caught 5 different animals. I've live trapped them and everything else, and I only own half an acre. And I've seen some of these raccoons, they carry diseases that are transmittable to your dogs, cats, and everything else, and humans. So they have to be brought back under control. I work with DNR, Lake Erie Corridor, on an advisory committee. So I do know what I'm talking about. So that's about all I have to say. I think it'd be smart to save our constituents a lot of money if we could do so. And it's going to be a lot of money if we put it in where we do this year every time. In time, it's going to save a lot of money for our constituents.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have to say.
Yep, thank you. So for the record, I'll just note that the council is not currently considering a deer cull. The council had investigated joining with other communities to start a dialogue in regards to a comprehensive understanding and plan to deal with deer. So there is no current plan for a deer cull, but there is an ongoing conversation in regards to the need in our community to potentially address the deer population. Good evening, sir. Your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Tony Golina, 18237, excuse me, University Park Drive, Livonia, Michigan 48152. I've been retired for over 20 years. My wife, Mary, and I have lived in Livonia for 22 years. We've enjoyed the use of Kersey Recreation Center and Senior Citizen Center. Many of the events take place, knowing that the police and the firemen are behind us. I'm a member of the Livonia Chamber of Commerce for years, and Knights of Columbus, Italian American Club, and the Veteran American Legion. Tonight, I want to address your attention to a letter which I had written to the mayor, Honorable Mayor Brosnan. So I'm going to read this letter. Dear Mayor Brosnan, I am writing you today to bring up a serious circumstance and to follow up in hopes of finding a solution. For the safety of many residents of our city, myself included, we need to have more handrails installed down the steps of the Livonia City Hall building. On January the 18th, 2022, as I left City Hall building, my experience was that I slipped and fell down 7 steps. I landed on the right side of my body, injuring my right eardrum, shoulder, and head, also my neck. These were severe injuries and created pain which persists to this day. My claim against the city resulted only in reimbursement for my hearing aids that were lost in the fall. Nothing for medical expenses. The committee that I contacted after the fall never responded to my plea for additional and visible handrails to be constructed and installed at Livonia City Hall. I did ultimately locate one handrail that is out of the way along a far wall. As a safety feature, the handrail is very hard to find, almost hidden from view when you exit the building. For myself, other seniors with city business, and the overall safety of the public, I am urging you to get this problem addressed.
Thank you,
and-
sir.
And remedied.
Sir, I have to cut you off.
Just a couple lines. to
I
bump up.
unfortunately, I cannot. I have to treat everybody the same. I think we understand what you're saying, though. And at this point, we will make sure to pass along these concerns and bring them to the attention of the people who are in charge of building maintenance.
I hope so.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else with comments to the council not on the agenda this evening? Okay, we will close audience communication, and at this time, we will go to council comments. I'll start off. We'll wish our treasurer and our assistant city attorney, our treasurer, Linda Scheel, and our assistant city attorney, Eric Goldstein, both a happy birthday. That's September 28th. I'll note that we also have new data on items 4, 6, and 7, and I will go to my colleagues. Mr. McCullough, I believe you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. We had a fairly busy week in the city. Yesterday, we started off with the Tour de Livonia. If you didn't partake in it, it was an awesome event. It's the second annual. They do kind of like a professional bike tour that's 18 miles, and then the family that goes, I think, 8. Weather held out. It was an awesome event. Tons of fun had by all, and hopefully gearing up next year for the third annual. Also, right after that was the good old-fashioned corn roast. That was at Bicentennial Park. Had a ton of service groups. I counted probably over 400 people going in and out of there. It might have been more. It was awesome to see every different service group, people kind of talking to each other and learning about different things that are involved in the city. Those were the two awesome things coming up. Last thing I do want to talk about, and Council President Jim Jolly actually kind of took the lead with an email to the administration last week about crosswalks and traffic lights around schools and the safety around the city that we've been having issues. More recently, a few days ago, there was also an accident in Castle Gardens. And I just want to let everybody know that, thanks to Mr. Jolly for bringing this up, it's getting discussed and looked at through the Traffic Commission. I know there's a lot of people out there that want to see some enhancements made in the neighborhoods. And just know that the Traffic Commission's on it, City Council's on it. We're going to work together to try to find some solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the resident that just spoke about the slip and fall incident, I know you couldn't finish your entire letter, but if you wanted to, you could email City Council that letter so we could read it. That's citycouncil@livonia.gov. So you want to send that letter to citycouncil@livonia.gov, you could do that. Also, I'd like to note that the Livonia Police Department is having a blood drive on Monday, September 25th, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. So the police department is having a blood drive on Monday, September 25th, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., and that is at the Knights of Columbus Banquet Hall on Farmington Road between 7 and 8 Mile. So if you're able to find some time, that's a great way to give back to our police department as they give back to us all the time. And apparently, I believe maybe 4 to 6 p.m. there's going to be free pizza. I think that time is right. So what a great way to give back to our police department, help out, maybe get some free pizza while you're at it. So check that out. If you need more information, go to the Livonia POA page, Livonia Police Officer Association page, and they'll have some more information listed there. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Donovic. Ms. McIntyre?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, when Mr. McCullough talked about these two great events this weekend, which they certainly were, as we have so many events like these. Thursday evening, the Livonia Police Department hosted the annual recognition and thank you dinner for our reserve officers. These activities, the ones this weekend, as I said, so many others, the spree, our parade, these things would not happen without the efforts of our outstanding reserve officers and also our CERT team. They get recognized at a different evening. But it was lovely to have an opportunity to spend the evening with our reserve officers and see a number of them recognized for years of service. They do a phenomenal job. Our reserve officers are as well trained as full-time officers in some other departments. That's not knocking anybody else. It's just we're very fortunate to have this great program. And also a special thank you to the folks that run this program, Lieutenant Mike Mockridge, police officer, senior police officer Mike Arkillian, and the coordinator Marcy Wenzel. So great job, reserves. And then the second thing I wanted to mention, this is the 50th anniversary of the Livonia Symphony Orchestra this year, and they're kicking off their new season.
this Saturday, September 23rd at 4 p.m. with a concert at Clarenceville Auditorium. It's a potpourri, classical arias to Broadway melodies. It will be featuring a soprano, and I cannot urge you and encourage you strongly enough to, if your schedule permits, to get tickets to this fabulous orchestra performance. Few communities of our size have their own professional symphony orchestra. And anyone who enjoys going downtown and hearing the DSO will enjoy this right in our own backyard. So hope that can fit into your schedule, and congratulations to the symphony on hitting this great golden anniversary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. Vice President Toy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm shuffling through this real quick. There is going to be an event over at our senior center, which I'm looking real forward to since I graduated before Abraham Lincoln was shot. And, sometimes you get challenged with technical kinds of issues, whether it's a phone or a computer or a laptop. And there is a group including 3 or 4 different high schools within Livonia area that are going to come out and teach seniors or anyone else that feels a little challenged on some of these apparatuses, September 30th from 2 to 5. That's a Saturday at Livonia Senior Center. So if you have someone that you'd like to communicate with more, I would urge you to attend this event, which is called the Senior Tech Support, from 2 to 5 on that Saturday. And also, I want to announce that you just reminded me with Clarenceville, Councilwoman, that from 2:30 to 6 this Saturday, we are having our Women's Connection meet. And I know that Treasurer Linda Shield, colleague Kathleen McIntyre, Mrs. Pashenik over here, and others, and Nash, have been out to it, and it's a great group. It's kind of a bipartisan group that meets and says, what can we do to help the city or each other, and it's very well attended usually. And I know that there's going to be some surprise gifts, as it includes a symphony as well. So anyone can come, and that's again September 23rd over at Clarenceville High School from 2:30 to 6. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and others.
Thank you, Vice President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Donovic.
I never miss an opportunity to make a joke about Councilwoman Laura Toy. I think she just got her first iPhone, actually. So I think that class will be really good for her. Thanks, Mr. President.
I had one teed up as well. I was going to say then she can stop bothering all of us. Calling us. All right, if there's nothing else from the council at this time, we will move on to the scheduled agenda for the evening. First up, we have reports from the mayor and other city officials. An audit report from the Livonia Housing Commission for the fiscal year ending December 31 of 2022 that excludes Silver Village, Newburgh Village, and the Community Development Block Grant Program and single-family city-owned properties. We'll now move to the consent agenda. Tonight, that's only items 1 and 2. These items were previously studied at the study meeting on September 6th of 2023 and found to require no additional study. At this time, they will be voted on as a single item. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Mr. Donovic?
I'll offer an approving.
Support.
We have an approving from Donovic, support from Mr. Barr. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the consent agenda, either item 1 or 2? I see none. Ms. Nash, take the vote on the consent agenda, please.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Items 1 and 2 are approved. We'll move on to unfinished business, starting with item number 3. That's a roll call for the proposed amendment to the Livonia Livonia zoning ordinance, as amended from the Department of Law, petition 2023040103, submitted by Michael Murad, requesting to rezone the property at 20180 Westmore Street, located on the east side of Westmore, between Farmington and Shadyside in the northwest quarter of Section 3, from N2 neighborhood to RUF rural urban farm. A first reading was provided by Vice President Toy on September 6th of 2023. Ms. Toy?
Mr. President, I will offer the second reading on such.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any comments from the council on item number 3? Is there any comments from the audience on item number 3? I see none. Ms. Nash, please take the vote.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 3 passes. Item 4 tonight is a waiver petition from the Planning Commission, petition 2023060206, submitted by Gerald Todd Clark on behalf of ServiceMaster, requesting to develop a planned general development involving the conversion of an existing 8-story office building into a climate-controlled self-storage and first-floor retail, including residential and commercial restoration services, construction of drive-up self-storage units, and 5 single-family residential lots on the property at 29200 Vassar Avenue, located on the north side of Vassar, between Parkville and Middlebelt Road in the southwest quarter of Section 1. I'll note that we do have new data on this item as well. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Toy?
I'll offer a denying resolution on this.
I'll support.
We have a denying from Vice President Toy with support for the denying by Mr. McCullough. Ms. Toy, do you have anything you'd like to say at this time?
No, as I look at this, I think it's a little excessive for that area. We do have other storage units surrounding that area, and 8 stories, some retail in there. I'm not so sure that is the best spot for that. And at this time, with the information I had, I would ask to deny it, sir.
Thank you, Vice President. We do have our Economic Development Director here tonight. Mr. Tormina, do you have any additional information in regards to this item? I know you presented this previously at a study meeting.
The new data that was supplied to you came from the applicant, so he may want to address you in terms of the new data that was submitted to council.
Okay. And we'll go to the petitioner in just a second. I think, Mr. Donovic, did you have something to say?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. I'll be in support of my colleague's motion. You know, I've looked into this a lot, went back and forth with it a lot, because it's not an easy decision. You talk about a building that's been vacant for so many years and is functionally obsolete. We try to be creative as a city council. We do with future development of our vacant buildings. But as this council has done multiple times, we've seen other vacant buildings in our city that we've been brought plans, we've denied them because they just didn't make sense. 7 Mile in Inkster, there's an old office building. Somebody proposed plans to make it residential. Council denied that, and I drove by yesterday, and they're doing an office building today. The old AT&T building at Plymouth Road in Plymouth and Merriman, they brought plans to do a storage building there. This council denied it, and now they are doing some sort of administrative/office usage there. There's been so many other petitions for more storage in our city, and it seems like every single vacant building now, there's a potential for a proposed storage building, and I just start to ask myself, at what point is enough? Every single vacant building or vacant piece of land, somebody's asking about a storage yard or a car wash. And I know we all see it. We see it on the news, we see it on social media, we see it on our agendas. So I'm trying to be very diligent about the repurposing of our vacant buildings and vacant land. You look at some of the information we've been given, within 4 miles of this location, there's 22 storage companies with roughly 1.3 million square feet of space. So when you ask myself about what's the highest and best use for this property, I have a really hard time envisioning an 8-story tall storage building. You look at the master plan specifically calls out this location for mixed development center. And when you read through the master plan, you understand what that means. Mixed development centers should be redeveloped into higher density, mixed use cores of activity, addressing residents' desire for walkable neighborhoods and to create gathering spaces. The mixed development centers should provide engaging streetscapes with variety storefronts and activities, residential options that include townhomes, upper story lofts, and apartments. I can't think of a storage unit fitting that master plan concept, that idea. When it talks about appropriate land uses, it includes office, general retail commercial, food service, and attached upper story residential uses. Automotive-oriented uses, such as gas stations, auto repair, or drive-through facilities are not appropriate in the mixed development areas. In my mind, when we think of a special waiver usage, which is what a storage unit is, that would fall under what I would categorize as not being appropriate for this space, especially when you factor in right next door at 7 and Middle Belt across the street with the old vacant Sears. Their area is ripe for redevelopment, and I just can't fathom an 8-story tall storage building next to this potential we have at the old Sears. Now, Sears is a very difficult site because we've been trying to get it developed, but the property owner at Sears has been difficult to deal with, unfortunately, and that hasn't happened yet. But we've seen plans brought to us about that project at 7 Mile and Middle Belt for that Sears. And I know that eventually, hopefully I'll be on this council when it happens, we're going to get really good plans and do some really good work there. But an 8-story tall storage building right next door, I just can't wrap my mind around it. So for those reasons, I won't be in support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donovic. If there's nothing else from the council at this time, for the petitioner, good evening, sir. If you don't mind, give me your name and your affiliation, please.
Not at all, Mr. President and council members. My name is Dennis Cowan. I'm with law firm Plunkett Cooney, and I'm here on behalf of MySpace Self-Storage and ServiceMaster. We do have our principal, Todd Clark, here, our vice president, Gary Garretts of New Development, and also our architect of record, Hunter Gelbreth. You clearly have had all the plans and all the information. We did present some additional information, and I'd just like to emphasize briefly. First of all, there was some skepticism about community support. So we decided to gauge the community support. And we went out and acquired in 5 days, 5 afternoons, over 200 signatures, what we presented to you. I believe if we had kept that up, we could have easily doubled that. The comments we heard were about the vandalism, the blight, the 15 years of this building being empty, and that something needed to be done, and this seemed to be a very reasonable alternative, and we agree. I do understand that there are plans, but sometimes those plans have to be modified because they don't fit the times or they fit the opportunity. We're presenting an opportunity to take this vandalized and basically abandoned building and turn it into something very positive for the community. Our second point is that we have presented the only hard evidence with our market study that is independent and impartial that shows this is a B+, very positive site. This is a study that's Public Storage 101 is a national company, and despite the fact that we've had competitors who have attacked it, and I can understand that, they don't want the competition. I might add that they've actually come into a competitive market, so they knew what they were getting into, much like our client. We're not afraid of competition. So we believe this is the only hard evidence, and if someone wanted to attack it, they could have paid for a study and brought you those results. But I think we know why. Because the study would have proven and shown that this is a B+ in a site. It's not oversaturated or an oversupplied market. Finally, and this is kind of a bonus, because I know land use decisions are not made based on finances, but I was stunned to find out that this building, and we're not responsible for the taxes, we just have a purchase agreement, only generates $19,000 a year. If you vote for this proposal, it will uncap the taxable value, and with the improvements of between $8 to $10 million, the tax revenue for this property will, I can't estimate it because I'm not an assessor, but it'll be a lot more than is being received today by the city and by the Clarenceville School District and the State Education Fund, which are the primary beneficiaries of taxes here in the community. So we believe we presented an excellent project, a mixed-use project that will allow my ServiceMaster to come here and have their headquarters, to have the self-storage, to have 5 new homes on Parkville, which, by the way, will also generate additional tax revenue. So we've given it our best shot. I want to take this opportunity to thank the city, to thank the planning department, to thank the other departments, to thank the Planning Commission, and you for the consideration that you've given. We came here very seriously to do business and invest in the community. We hope that you will agree. I also want to thank the neighbors, especially on Parkville and the other streets right around. They've been very supportive, and we're very grateful for their support. So thank you. If you have any questions, we stand ready to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Is there any questions from the council for Mr. Cowan at this time? I see none. Oh, actually, Mr. Barr? We have no questions for you at this time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Barr?
Yeah, I just wanted to wait for his comments before I offered mine. I'll be voting against the denial. I too have, we've all put a lot of time into thinking about this, and this is something that I will freely say there's merit to the position in support of this denial. My colleague, Councilman Donovic, his comments are well received. I understand the rationale. And I think I probably even share his desire for that property long term. A few things to consider with this property and why. Let me just say this at the outset. My ideal for that property would not be for this particular proposal. My ideal would be much like what the Vision 21 plan lays out, just as Councilman Donovic said. But the fact of the matter is, I don't own that property. And there's somebody that owns a piece of property that is not zoned according to the master plan. It's zoned according to what its zoning is, which is appropriate for this site. And, you know, I voted in support of the master plan. I'm excited about what potential that holds. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to some of these sites, it's a wish list for the city. And the owner has to come to us to petition for a piece of property rezoned for a current use. And so I have a hard time, even though that's what I desire, I recognize what it's zoned currently, and I think we have to respect that. As far as that zoning goes, some of the other uses that were talked about, and Mr. Donovic gave some good examples of other things in the city that have found other uses after denials here. But this is a piece of property that during my time on council, I have seen legitimate proposals to turn that into an office building again, and has found to be non-feasible. And that was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, it's going to be even less feasible for that to be an office building from an economic standpoint. There was a very, I would even say, exciting proposal for that building a number of years ago to turn it into a residential building. Several of us had an opportunity to tour that with the person that wanted to do that and go inside the building and see what it would look like. And for a number of reasons, that was found to not be feasible. So it's not going to be office. It's not going to be residential. And we have a piece of property in our city that most residents probably have not gone and looked at. But if you go back and actually drive into that property, you will be stunned at how blighted of a piece of property that is. And we have someone willing to come and invest $10 million to pick up a piece of property that is blighted, that is known to be a problem with the activity that happens there since it's been vacant, and furthermore, includes a component that completes the where the property currently opens up to homes on the other side, where there's homes only on one side of the street. They're offering to rezone a portion of it to complete that street and build several residential homes there, which provide a perfect buffer to that neighborhood. Finally, and this is, you know, anybody that's watched these meetings has heard me say, kind of with a smile on my face, that in all my time here on council and on planning commission, I've never seen a development that the neighbors like. I don't ever remember a time where we've had a couple hundred nearby neighbors coming and saying, we want this development to happen. That just doesn't happen. I know it's not 100%. We've gotten a few emails from a few neighbors that are in opposition. But I think those neighbors who are dealing with the blight of that building see the possibility that could happen here. And somebody wants to come to spend $10 million to fix up a blighted piece of property that we know is going to struggle to be redeveloped as something else. To me, I don't think it's in our best interest to deny it. I think we should be supporting it. So the motion on the table is denial. I will be voting no, but that no is not no to the project, it's a no to the denial.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. At this time, I will open the floor to audience comment. Anybody who'd like to address this item on behalf of the public is welcome to address the council. You will have 2 minutes to do so. Ms. McIntyre is the parliamentarian for the council. She's going to keep the time. I would ask that we keep the comments on point, respectful, and if at all possible, let's try and avoid the repetitive nature of the things that are being said. We want to give everybody the attention and consideration for what they're saying. We just don't need to hear the same thing a million times. So with that being said, welcome, ma'am. If you don't mind, can you pull the microphone down towards you a little bit more? Perfect.
Okay.
Can you tell me your name and address, please?
My name is Laura Murray. I live at 19461 Parkville Street in Livonia, Michigan, which is right next door to this building that we're talking about. And my husband and I have lived in our home over 20 years, and the last 10, 15 years, we've watched this building decline. And it's a blight, it's an eyesore, and it's a danger to our neighborhood. We have called the police numerous times for kids breaking windows, breaking into the building. We've had people dumping in the parking lot. We've had people with their lights coming into our bedroom at night because they're in there doing donuts or they're dumping garbage. This has gone on long enough. I don't understand why it's been allowed to get to the state it's in, like this gentleman said. It's horrible over there. There's glass all over the parking lot. Somebody was there last week spray painting. It's got to end. And these gentlemen want to come in and improve our neighborhood, add homes to the neighborhood, hopefully increase our property values because of this, and bring in tax dollars to our city. I just feel that we live in a country that we are given freedom of choice. There's a lot of coffee shops. There's a lot of Dollar Trees. So what if there's a lot of storage? If these gentlemen find it's a valued business and they're going to put the money into it, I just don't understand why we would not want to do this. It's something that's going to be good for the city, and it needs to be done. We've got this, across the street, the Sears parking lot, which has now become a truck stop. It's sad. On that part of the city, we feel like we're the slums of Livonia. We don't get the attention it needs to get. So I'm really hoping you'll take this seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are people who'd like to address this item, it would be helpful if you would start to line up to go smoothly from person to person. Good evening, sir. Your name, please?
Donald Hall, I'm at 29105 Vassar, and I am directly across from the building in question. I've been in this city now for almost a little over 20 years now. And I've looked at this building day in and day out for all these years. It was a small office building when I first moved in. Everybody moved out. Not sure why, but they moved out. I've seen the cell towers thrown off the top of the building. I've seen toilets thrown out the windows. The place is flooded. The parking lot's in a shambles. They've got a block wall around the building that they've had to come out and had to repair because it's fallen over, and I believe it's actually fallen over on that lady's yard. So I am sick of the blight. I mean, come on, this is Livonia. I moved out here from E-Course. I expect a lot better. And I really would appreciate if you guys would consider giving this company a chance to do something. I don't have an issue with it. I think it's a great idea. Like you said, it's gonna generate revenue and taxes for the city. It gets an eyesore out of our faces. The parking lot is gonna get cleaned. They're putting in a small little park at the front of the place, residential area, So, I mean, for me to have to stand and look at this thing as my property value is depleting, looking at this, and like you said, across the street, we got Sears. Can't do nothing with that yet because you're waiting for some, miracle to happen. Well, this guy, they just brought us one. So let's give it to them. I mean, give it to your residents. We're all rooting for this. We all want this to happen. I'd appreciate if you guys would consider and let them do it. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address this item at this time? Good evening, sir. Your name and address, please?
Nick Murray, and I live at 19461 Parkville. My house is right next door. And when I moved in there 24 years ago, my relatives and friends would come by and say, okay, I see why that building's not a problem. And that went on until the blight started. And now they come by and they're like, why are you still staying here? Well, my lot is 3/4 of an acre. And my house is only 1,200 square feet, but it's beautiful. And I don't want to move, but I want to see something done with that building. I'm tired of looking at it. I'm tired of all the stuff that my wife mentioned. This is terrible, and I do not understand why City Council is so against what's going on with that property. There's nothing wrong with what they want to do, but for some reason, City Council seems to be obstinate to the whole idea of fixing this up. I don't get it. I honestly do not get it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else from the audience who'd like to address item number 4? If there is not, I'll go back to the council. Is there anybody on the council who'd like to make any remarks? I see none. We have a denying motion on the table. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Nash to take the vote.
Just to clarify that a yes vote is a deny vote. To deny, okay. Vice President Toy?
Yes.
Councilmember Barr?
No.
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre?
No.
President Jolly?
No. The item is tied 3-3. At this time, I'll go back to the council. Are there any additional motions on the floor?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Barr?
I'll offer approving.
Is there support for the approving?
Support.
We have a motion to approve from Barr with support from McIntyre.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr.
I was
Barr,
just
go
going to
ahead.
explain.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this might seem a little odd. I mean, we just tied 3-3. That's a failing motion. It would be reasonable to assume that this vote would be the same. But we need something on the floor for this. And I've made my views clear. I'll just make one more final appeal to my fellow council members. You've heard the voices of the people that live right there and look at this thing every day. I don't need their voices for the rationale that I said earlier, but I think it just reinforces what I said. And we've got an opportunity to fix up a major problem property in our city here. And, the viability of the business is the investor's problem, frankly. It's not ours. So, thanks.
Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not going to support the approving motion for all the reasons I expressed earlier. But additionally, I mean, we're looking at an 8-story tall building that eventually could be vacant again. Now it's going to be an 8-story tall storage building that's vacant 10, 15, 20 years down the road from now, 5 years down the road from now. I just think we have to be very intentional about when we are fixing up our blighted buildings. I live at Plymouth and Middlebelt. There are a ton of blighted buildings. I talk to our inspection department all the time. I brought things forward to try to go after vacant properties because we need to be very harsh on vacant properties. Why would we essentially reward this building owner that has not taken care of his building for many years? I've talked to multiple commercial brokers that are very familiar with this property, and they sit there and say, we can't ever sell it, we can't get anything done over there because the person that's selling it thinks it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and so on and so forth. They want all this money for this building, which is why they can't get anything done with it. And they finally get someone that wants to do something, and I'm very thankful that I appreciate someone putting their hard-earned money into something. I do appreciate that. But I'm not going to support a plan just because we got a plan for it. I think the best thing that can happen to this building is it's knocked down and leveled, and there'd be future opportunities then. But an 8-story tall storage building, I just don't see that in our master plan. I don't see that as something that I can support. We've turned down other storage buildings. They're special waiver uses just for a reason, because they are a higher threshold. And I just don't think it meets it at this location. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Donovic. Vice President Toy?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo some of what Councilman Dominic has said. 16 rights don't make it right, just because for how many years has that building, I've sat in this council before when we had apartments in there, or excuse me, businesses, office businesses in there. That building has not been kept up. That landowner has not been good about getting it fixed, making it usable, attracting it so that others would come along to buy it besides storage units. That is in vogue today. I mean, everybody wants to put in storage units in this city. I am not going to make this city storage unit city, okay? I'm just not gonna do it, as I'm not gonna make a car wash city, because that's what's been coming before this council. It used to be drugstores, and if you look at the drugstores around Livonia, you'll see what I mean. Several of them have closed in time. But I think it's up to the property owner. I own a business here in Livonia. If I made my lot appear that way or didn't keep it up, I would be, brought to inspection and fined and everything else. So it's not only the problem with what's going on in the neighborhood, and also that entire area needs to be looked at. Now that Sears and other places have basically not been in business or gone out of business, because we have Amazon, we have a different way of living now. Perhaps we should look at that whole area, and I think that's what needs to be considered in this complex issue as we look at things in our community. It's a perfect time to get some strong heads from neighbors, from business people in those areas to look at what's going on and what we can creatively do rather than jump on a eight-story storage unit. Thank you.
Mr. McCullough?
Thank you, Council President. I'm trying not to, I guess, echo the same substance that's already been kind of tossed out there. This one is tough. I've talked to a lot. I recently was at the Clarenceville golf outing, and I think I talked to about 50 people about this specific plan. Neighbors in the community, and, you know, I totally sympathize. I've studied this a lot. The issue I have with this is when you look over, and I understand the comments about, you know, what is going to happen to Sears down the line. We have hopes. I wish I could give you some definitive answers. I worry that once this happens, it's done. As Councilmember Donovic brought up, it becomes a storage unit. And who knows if that ever goes under. You know, there's hypothetical questions that we can answer. I look at this, and you got Prani's right next door. That building's half occupied. You've got, you know, heat island and asphalt that is just crumbling all around there. And as Councilwoman Toy also brought up, is I'm trying to see the overall. And, you know, sometimes development is great and sometimes development is bad. I look at it for the right development. And if you could pair something with the project that could be potential at that Sears property, I think this turns into a very lucrative piece that you could have walkability. You could have everything that we put into our master plan. That's what gives me hesitation on this. And for that reason, as much as I want to see the investment, I'm not going to be in support of this. Thank you.
So per the rules of our council here, I have to go back to the audience again. I'm just going to remind you that the substance has not changed. There's just a different motion at this time. Is there any additional comments from the audience? For the petitioner, Mr. Cowan.
Mr. President, I just have a procedural question.
Yes, sir.
Which I could ask tomorrow, but if this does end up in a 3-3 tie, 2 3-3 ties, do we come back next week when you have a full council?
That is not the way the council is structured. Pursuant to the council rules, my understanding is the issue would be dead and you could repetition for the council to hear it again.
All right.
Is that correct, Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Okay.
Would it be in the discretion of the council to be able to do that?
I don't believe it is.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Karen Billings. I live at 30301 Breton. Been there for 37, almost 38 years now. I understand what my neighbors are saying. I totally would love to see all the blight gone in the neighborhood. This is ridiculous. I don't think I'm in agreement with, you know, I don't think a storage unit would be the ideal thing to put up there. We seem to have a problem right now in our city with, you know, maybe more residential homes would be okay, because this is the deal that I'm seeing in the neighborhood that I'm sick and tired of seeing is, you know, we just keep tearing down more and more and more of the woods in the neighborhoods and stuff like that and creating new subdivisions. Why don't you take something like that and create more residential homes? something like that, I think would be a good idea. As far as your Sears goes, and this is just my opinion, but something like blocks of nursery that could be useful for, maybe it's because I'm into nature, but for, a nice place where people can go and buy their flowers and blah, blah, blah. But it can also be useful as like a farmer's market at the same time. So it's a big portion of land, and it takes, what I'm suggesting actually would be like perfect for that area. But it would be great as farmer's market. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I have a procedural question.
Yes, Mr. Barr.
Through the chair to Paul, I guess, unless maybe Jim, you know the answer. So we have a denial that failed. If I had not made the approving and no other motion been made, what happens? I should know this after almost 8 years on
Well, the
council.
denial did not fail. It ended in a tie.
Right.
So thereby, it would have died on the vine.
So if no other motion had been made, we would just move on and
Correct.
it's off our, okay. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Your name and address again, please?
Nick Murray, Parkville Street. I would love nothing more than see that building, demolition done on that building. I'm a retired master electrician. I've been inside that building. It is structurally sound. It would take a lot of money to demo that building, just like the Sears across the street. Who's gonna pay for that? Livonia's not gonna pay for that. A developer's not gonna pay for that. It takes a lot of money to do demolition. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. If there's no more comments from the audience,
Mr. Barr has a question, and I'll yield to him, and then I have a procedural question.
You better go first before I.
how about I call on people who are going to talk? Just to keep an order of the meeting here.
what I'm
Ms. McIntyre,
suggesting.
do you have something to say? Mr. Barr has spoken already.
Yes, I do. I have a question for Mr. Bernier. So on this vote, if it's a 3-3, then it fails because then it would be subject to mayoral veto, correct?
No, the mayor can only veto something that the council passes. So it says-
Got it. That's, I knew there was something right, I knew I couldn't, but I couldn't, okay, thank you. That was my question.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Barr.
The reason I wanted Councilwoman McIntyre to go first is because what I'm about to do, I think would have kept her from speaking. So I'm not sure I understand all the procedural ramifications, but I don't think there's risk to this. I'm going to withdraw my motion.
And do you concur, Ms. McIntyre? Is the support?
So if we withdraw the motion, then there's no vote, nothing happens. Right.
Even if we voted on it and it was a 3-3 tie, the approval would not technically fail. It would die and wither on the vine. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not a yes or no. There is no difference effectively.
Mr. President,
Wait, hold on one second, just for point, as the supporter of the motion, do you concur with Mr. Barr?
I would prefer that we go ahead and vote on this tonight, but if he withdraws the motion, I don't, and I believe as a parliamentarian, I should know this, but I don't believe I have the ability to keep him from withdrawing a motion, correct, Mr. Bernier?
I think it's up to the maker of the motion, whether the motion gets withdrawn.
All right, this is government in action, folks. I'll leave it out there. We can proceed with the vote.
So the motion is on the floor.
President, I'll rescind my question I was going to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further comments from the council and no further comments from the audience, Ms. Nash, will you please take the vote on the approving motion offered by Mr. Barr and supported by Ms. McIntyre?
Vice President Toy?
No.
Councilmember Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic?
No.
Councilmember McCullough?
No.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Aye.
President Jolly?
Aye. We again end in a 3-3 tie. There is no decision on this matter. If there's no further motions from the council, we will move on to number 5. Item number 5 is a waiver petition from the Planning Commission for petition 2023060209, submitted by Leo Sauve Building, Inc., requesting special waiver use approval to develop a planned residential development consisting of 5 buildings in a total of 11 residential dwelling units on properties at 35755 and 35841 Plymouth Road, located on the south side of Plymouth Road between Yale Avenue and Levan Road in the northeast quarter of Section 32. Can I have a motion, please? Oh, Mr. Barr?
Yeah, I'll offer support.
We have an approving from Mr. Barr. Can I have support for that motion?
Support.
Support from Ms. McIntyre. Is there any comment from the council? I see none. Is there any comment from the audience in regards to item number 5?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Barr.
I do support this, but through the chair to Mr. Termina. One thing I just noticed as I was reviewing this before today's meeting that I didn't think to ask last time. On the eastern edge of this property, so the property's designed with a street that's in a T, and one of the thoughts that had gone through my mind is if in the future adjacent properties were to do something similar, which I think we talked about, there's the potential at some point that could happen, there's no plans, but it's nice that the streets are laid out in such a way that there could be a continuous street that goes through there potentially. On the eastern edge of the property, however, there's the water retention basin that would be in the way. Is that a potential obstacle in the future for what I'm talking about, or can all that just be reconfigured if we encountered that situation?
I mean, it's conceivable, it's unlikely. Keep in mind that this would be a condominium.
Right.
And would be under the control of an association that would have to make the decision to make all of these changes, including modifying the common area, the retention system, and then allowing for the extension of the road. Where they're public streets, then the option is it's much easier at that point to extend a road end. But in this case, it's much more challenging. It's not inconceivable, but not likely.
Okay. Raises more thoughts for a longer discussion another time, but I'm good for tonight. Thanks.
I have some information to share about this. So because the condominium association is plotted by a master deed, all the individual deeds are subservient deeds of the master deed. I think it's almost impossible that you would actually accomplish what you're talking about, although we would want to see something like that. If there's no comment from the audience in regards to item number 5, I'll ask Ms. Nash to take the vote.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 5 passes. Moving on to item 6. That is a site plan petition from the Planning Commission, petition 2023070806, submitted by Leo Sauve Building Company, LLC, requesting approval of the master deed, bylaws, and site plan to develop a site condominium, Sunset View, consisting of 11 single-family homes on the property at 30250 Morlock Avenue, located on the west side of Sunset Avenue between Fargo and 8 Mile Road in the northwest quarter of Section 2. We do have new data on this item. Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Barr?
I'll offer committee of the whole.
Support.
We have an offer to refer this matter to Committee of the Whole from Mr. Barr with support from Ms. McIntyre. Is there any comment from the council?
Mr. Chair, just briefly, we talked about this at the study meeting, but I won't rehash all that. My major point of concern at this point with this is not it being redeveloped residential. I explained last time why I think that's settled. It's a matter of the density, and I'm not comfortable with how many homes are proposed for this, and I'd like a chance to discuss it further.
If there's no other comment from the council, I'm going to go to the audience with this, but I'm going to tell you ahead of time, so the opportunity that's on the floor right now is a motion for Committee of the Whole. A Committee of the Whole meeting would allow us to have a little bit more of a casual conversation with the residents in the surrounding area, with the petitioner on this item, and the council as a whole. These meetings typically take place upstairs in a little bit more of a casual atmosphere that allows a little bit more of a dialogue and a discussion. So any comments, you're more than welcome to address them tonight for this referral, but you may be better suited waiting till that committee of the whole meeting, and you will be notified of that. With that being said, would anybody like to address the council for item 6? If there is anybody who would like to address the council, you got to come up to the podium. If there's anybody additionally who'd like to speak, please line up behind. Good evening, sir. Your name and address, please. You have 2 minutes.
Michael Doyle, 20210 Sunset Street. And for like the 19th time, I'm talking to all of you, over, if it's over Facebook or email. Thank you all. You've been awesome to talk to. I just want to acknowledge again, he owns the property. He has the right to build based on zoning. But as you've heard in the planning meeting, as you've heard at the study meeting, and as we've talked about all of our concerns, they just keep piling up. One of the concerns that I have is there's a lot of unknowns. Flooding, trying to fit 11 homes into an 8-home space, which is what ours are on, all of that jazz. And to be honest with you, if we're going to have a casual chat about this afterwards, I will save most of this for that, but I just want to share, I was able to take my kid to his daycare the other day, and there was a family of 8 deer and 2 bucks, beautiful deer. I got home, walked my dogs, and there was a fox for the first time I've ever seen. They all live in those woods. And then there was the 2 groundhogs on my porch. If you want to take care of those for me, I would appreciate that. But there's so much wildlife that lives in those wooded areas. And at the same time, I just want to bring up that we are also, I've heard talking about maybe removing some green areas at 7 in Middlebelt or 7 in Merriman. I saw on Facebook the other day. We're taking away a lot of green spaces, and I just, as I told you last time, that's why I moved here. So I'm sorry if I'm wrong on that, but just, you've heard everything. The Planning Commission did vote 3-2 with Ian and the Vice President both voting no based on their findings, and I just hope that you keep that in mind. Thank you very much for your time and for dealing with me over this entire period.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So no, please, the decorum of the meeting is very important. Let's keep it that way. I just want to put this out there. The council has heard these concerns, and that's why this is going to committee of the whole, most likely. I'm pretty sure it's going to be voted that way. Ma'am, your name and address, please?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Maxfield. My address is 30860 Fargo Street. I'm adjacent to where we want to build all these homes, and I was sorry to see the first set of homes go in, to be honest, because it took away a lot of the woods, and now we want to take what's left and take those woods away as well. And I'm also concerned about the amount of traffic that's on Fargo. I've lived here for 31 years in that house, and I recently retired, and so now I have a lot more time at home, and I see how much traffic is on Fargo. That's a main thoroughfare now, and if we put in more homes, it's going to bring even more traffic. And you know, at the very least, there's a 4-way intersection, one house away from me. And I would love to see some kind of traffic sign go there, because quite honestly, by the time somebody turns from Merriman and comes down Fargo and is in front of my house, they're doing 40, 50 miles an hour before they get to the end of the street. And it's a problem. We have a lot of kids on my street now. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll just point out to you that the item you mentioned in regards to the sign, you'd probably like to take that up with the Livonia Traffic Commission. We're not actually empowered for street signs. I got my own gripes about street signs, but the Traffic Commission's where you want to point those.
Do that.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. Your name and address, please.
Name's Ryan Molnar, 20218 Sunset. Keep it brief. Harmony. We've already discussed the woods, nature, beauty. How does demolishing perfectly good woods to put in homes add harmony? I understand providing homes for families, though. It was also said that these families would be attending Livonia Public Schools. We are a Clarenceville School District. When council proposed that we lower the number of homes for this development, it was kind of fell on deaf ears, which really resonated with me, because we were even in favor for that. Like, yeah, we're willing to compromise, like, we're about harmony, but it's more about money. And I understand permits and everything makes the city money, but safety is my #1 issue. We have a dozen children under 5 development years, walking, running, bikes. Yeah, we have a cul-de-sac. We're able to play in the street. We're not able to do that with construction for years on end in our critical times of development. And I just want to speak up for our children and the trees who don't have a voice at this council. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Nash to take the vote on the motion to refer this item to committee of the whole.
Vice President Toy. Aye. Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donavick.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. This item will be called out of committee for that meeting in the near future. Thank you all for attending. Item number 7 is an award of a bid and request for additional appropriation and expenditure from the Department of Parks and Rec for the construction of a pavilion and concrete pad at the Ben Chalani Play Area of Bicentennial Park from unexpended fund balance of the Community Recreation Fund.
So moved.
Support.
We have an approving from Toy, support from Donovic. Any comments from the council? Ms. McIntyre?
Yeah, I had asked for information from the administration as to why we're putting this into the Ben Chalani Bicentennial area instead of looking at moving some of this over to Sheldon Park.
Well, I'll note that we have new data on item number 7. I'm not sure offhand what that new data is. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, is there any audience comment on item number 7? I see none. Ms. Nash, please take the vote on 7.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donavick.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
No.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 7 passes. We'll now move on to new business. Item number 8 is a block party request from Lauren Gruey to be held on Saturday, September 30th, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Sherwood Street between Woodside and Park Lane, with a rain date of Sunday, October 1st of 2023. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approval.
Support.
We have an approving from Barr, support from McCullough. Good evening. Your name
evening.
and address, please.
My name's Lauren Grew. I live at 15612 Woodside.
Okay, and this is the same thing every year?
Basically, and I just want to note that the actual party will not be from 12 to 9. We just put that on the request form. We'd like to block the street from 2 to 9 to have setup and cleanup time, and the party will be from 4 to 8.
Okay. So we'll ask that that be appropriately reflected from 2 to 9 in the approving, if there's no objection. And how do you say your last name?
Grew. The last D is silent.
Grew?
Grew, yes.
Okay, I had a teacher in high school named Gruey. He spelled the same way, or maybe I was just saying it the wrong way.
I get that all the time, yeah.
All right. Okay, if there's no comment from the council or comment from the audience, I'll ask the city clerk to take the vote.
Vice President Toy.
Yes.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donavick.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. This is approved. Good luck, have fun,
Thank you so much. You're all welcome to come.
and we might just do that. All right, item number 9 is a request to consider adopting an ordinance from the Department of Finance for the issuance of water supply and wastewater system revenue bonds, Series 2023, in an amount not to exceed $6.5 million. Can I have a motion from the council?
So moved.
Support.
Motion to approve from Toy, support from McCullough. We're joined by our Finance Director, Mr. Slater. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Council. As you recall, Council has previously approved contracts for the engineering construction of water main replacements in our city. Council also had previously approved publication of a notice of intent to issue these bonds. That comment period has ended with no negative comments. So at this time, we're asking that the ordinance be adopted, which is the next step in the bond issuance. Under state law, this ordinance requires only one reading for adoption, and that's what our request is. Thank you.
Okay. By way of information here, is the ordinance written for vote tonight?
Yes.
Okay. So we would actually have to have this reflected as a first reading.
Okay, I'll
Is
be
that
happy
correct?
to do that.
Yeah, we were looking at it kind of as both an approving and a first reading, so either way.
You're satisfied with that?
We're satisfied.
All right, then we'll leave things as they are. Is there any comment from the council? Any comment from the audience on item number 9? Seeing none, Ms. Nash, please take the vote.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovan.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 9 passes. Thank you, Mr. Slater. Item 10 is a request to authorize additional expenditure from the Department of Public Works for the additional scope of work through change order on the Carl Sandburg Branch Library roof replacement project from the unexpended fund balance of the Capital Projects Fund. Can I have a motion, please?
All for approving?
Support.
Approving from McCullough, support from Vice President Toy. Good evening, Mr. Rushlow from DPW. This is your item. Can you give us some information, please?
Good evening, Council. Yes, thank you. During the construction process, there were a couple things that were found through the replacement of that roof at the Carl Sandburg Branch Library that required some additional work and thus additional funds to be requested here to complete that work that was done earlier this year. In order to proceed with payment for those additional scope items, we're requesting that Council authorize an additional appropriation and an expenditure an amount of $19,300 in funds available through the Capital Outlay and Building Improvement Fund for this project.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the council?
Mr. President.
Mr. Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Rushlow, for being here. You know my frustration with the amount of money we've been spending on speculative buildings. And when I say that, I mean the library buildings and what the future of our libraries are in this city. So we already spent $267,000 for the roof, and now we're asking for another $19,000. And I don't want to put you on the spot. I should have asked you earlier maybe and prepared you, but the capital project fund, do we know how much money is in that fund? I know Mr. Slater's here, and he's probably got it off the top of his head. But any idea how much we have in that fund?
I do not have those numbers in front of me.
And I hate to put you on the spot like that. I mean, the reason why I'm asking that question is we're going into our budget season, and I know there's been a lot of discussion amongst council members over the years to put money away for our buildings and whatnot. And again, as our buildings age, and this council, we're waiting for a decision from the administration to bring us something for the future of some of our other libraries. It just, here we go, another $19,000 on top of $267,000. This isn't your blame. This is your job. You do amazing work. I thank you, the DPW. We just continue to throw money at these older buildings, and we're not making decisions about the future.
Martin Meyer.
Sir, not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
I'll call on you when it's time. Just stay right there, okay? Go ahead, sir.
And we're not making decisions on the future of our library buildings. It's frustrating in the midst of, millions and millions of dollars we've been told by the experts that we have to invest in our buildings. So just hate to see another $19,000, but again, thank you to DPW for all the work you do. I know you guys are working hard to try to make sure our residents have adequate buildings and our staff have adequate buildings to work in. But if Mr. Slater does happen to have that number off the top of my head, that'd be awesome. Don't want to put you guys on the spot. Thank you, Mr. Rushlow.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. McCullough?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Mr. Rushlow, just everything looks in order. The insulation, you're not going to find that until you demo. And when you build it up, basically, if it's not pitched correct, you're going to find it out there. The question I do have is the copper. So, obviously copper is super expensive. Was there a way just to remove the copper and go back with stainless steel, or the steel, or no?
Yeah, we could have, and that was the intent in the original design. Once we peeled that back and found that that was actually true copper in the original design, the intent to keep the aesthetics of the original design of the building was to try and get that back to what was designed in the intent originally with copper on that finish on the trim. So we made that change to switch that from a steel to a copper finish.
Does that include downspouts and gutters?
It did not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. If there's nothing else from the council, sir, go ahead and tell me your name. Now it's your turn.
Martin Meyer, I think that we have too much runoff of our water. This is causing, we're not getting water going back into the aqua system. We're not causing, when we run everything but runoff, which is what we have been doing in Livonia, taking care of our swamps and everything else, all we do is increase the chance of flooding every time we have a rain, and it destroys houses and property.
Sir?
We've got to have a place to have water to go.
I have to stop you here. Do you have anything to say about the roof at the Sandburg Library?
No.
Okay, then I can't let you address this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
I
try our
can't
best
hear
to
you.
keep some sort of order. In a couple minutes at the end of the meeting, well, you can't talk then either, but you can talk at the beginning of the next meeting, okay? So if you want to stick around for a little bit, you can talk to us about whatever you want. But thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else from the council or the audience or Mr. Rushlow, I'm going to ask Ms. Nash to take the vote on item 10.
Vice President Toy?
Aye.
Councilmember Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic?
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough?
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Aye.
President Jolly?
Aye, item 10 passes. Item 11 is a request for additional expenditure from the Engineering Division regarding MEDC grants for the Denmark Drain Channel Improvement Project, Council Resolution 159-23. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. President, I'll offer an approving.
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Donovic. Approving by Donovic, support by Vice President Toy. And I'll go to Mr. Zelinsik. This is your item. Can you give us some information?
Thank you, Council President. Council members, as you know, we're working on 3 locations for the MDC grant, end up being actually 2. One you approved last meeting for the golf course, Whispering Willows, to alleviate that drainage issue. This is the second location that was designated as one of the critical items as part of the ARC. We removed a portion that was 306 feet long, 16 feet wide concrete channel to make it all natural behind the Tiger Teeth over by the bridge behind Hoover Elementary School off of Levan. As you're aware, we had a critical deadline between when school got out in June to before school started at early September. Solely Underground was the contractor. They provided the work. During this time, we had 2 significant rain events. One was at the end of July, and again, one at the end of August. When they started the project, they had some of the work done, and unfortunately had to redo some of the work after the July storm because of the heavy rainfall, even though there was some bypass pumping. If you all been down there, you know how critical the stormwater gets, the veracity of the water. We were trying to pick a time frame in which we thought it would be ideal to do this repair when drier season. But regardless, they worked together with ECT to come up with some additional design changes using the stone and pools, and had to use some additional coconut erosion along the edges because, again, with the storm events, did create some issues to come back and redo the work again. But we're asking a change in the amount of $71,275.50 for additional work that was completed. Some of the items were listed in the background details, and also we also had to ask for additional services from ECT in the amount of $2,030, bringing their total contract amount to $47,000 instead of the original amount they had set aside. Is there any further questions? I'd be happy to answer those, but if you get to take a look, it's been a significant improvement down there for the area it's now fenced in properly. The fence is not dilapidated. The sidewalk is fixed on both sides for pedestrians to go through that area. I think you'll see a big difference. I actually went out there a couple of weeks ago at night, and there's 8 deer on the site itself. We did have to put cages around the trees that were recently planted in hopes that they will obviously be maintained, and look for future projects like this to continue going north in a natural way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zelinsik. Is there anything from the council? I see none. I'll say, I've been out there. It looks amazing. It looks 100 times better than it did before. I was a little disappointed to see the fences blocking access, though. I understand exactly why they're there, so people like me and children don't go down there and play in the word.
Especially in heavy rain events, but thank you.
But it looks very, very nice. Is there anything from the audience on item number 11? If there is none, Ms. Nash, please take the vote.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 11 passes. Item 12 is an acceptance of a quitclaim deed from the Department of Law, secured without monetary consideration from Ryan LaFontaine, owner of LAG Plymouth LLC, as part of the lot combination of parcels 46-130-0005-004. That's 34715 Plymouth Road, and 46-130-01-0007-001, 34801 Plymouth Road, to obtain the necessary road right-of-way located in the northwest quarter of Section 33. This is parcel number 46-130-01-0007-003.
So
Can I-
moved.
Thank you, Ms. Toy.
I'm sorry.
Support.
I was getting tired of hearing you do all those numbers.
Not as tired as I was of saying it. We got a motion from Toy, support from McCullough. Are there any questions from the council in regards to what this is? I see none. Any audience comment on item number 12? I see none. Ms. Nash, please take the vote.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 12 is approved. Item 13 is a request to approve a partial settlement from the Department of Law for 7 of the 15 claims for Donald and Dina Krosky et al. Versus the City of Livonia in the Wayne County Circuit Court. That's case number 22-011590-NZ. Can I have a motion, please?
I will move approval.
Support.
Motion by McIntyre, support from Toy. Is there any comment from the council? Any comment from the audience? I see none. Ms. Nash, please take the vote on 13.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. Item 13 is approved. Item number 14 is a request to approve a settlement from the Department of Law for Barbara L. Thomas versus the City of Livonia. This is an EEOC charge number 471-2023-03811. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Approval.
Support.
Motion by McIntyre, support by Barr. Any comment from the council?
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre?
I'm happy that we're putting this whole unfortunate episode behind us.
Thank you. Any audience comment? I see none. Ms. Nash, please take the vote on 14.
Vice President Toy.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Aye.
President Jolly.
Aye. 14 is also approved. That concludes our scheduled agenda for the evening. Ms. McIntyre?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will apologize. I had missed the new data. The administration did indeed respond with the explanation of why those funds could not be used, and it has to do with the fact that it was part of an intergovernmental agreement with Wayne County, which only pertained to Commissioner Marecki's district as opposed to Commissioner Anderson's district. When we moved ahead with redistricting, and the city was split up into different districts, this is a good example of what can happen. Instead of us being under one commissioner's district, where money that gets approved by the county for the city to use can be used how the city sees fit, we end up, and it's the same happens with the state in some circumstances. You can only use the money in that region. So thank you, and my apologies for having missed the data.
Yeah, and that's an update on item number 7.
Yeah, I'm
just for
sorry, I
people
should have
who
mentioned
are
that. Thank you.
Interested, Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Mr. President. During the first council communication, I spoke about the Livonia blood drive. That's not actually officially run by the Livonia Police Department, rather Livonia Police Officers Association. So it's the union of the police department. So I just wanted to clarify that. So again, that's the Livonia Police Officers Association, which is hosting the blood drive Monday, September 25th, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Knights of Columbus on Farmington Road.
In
Thank you.
coordination with the Red Cross,
No.
right?
In coordination with Veracity,
Yeah.
it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Professionals who are taking the blood, though.
Professionals who are
right.
taking the blood draws,
Yes.
All
yes.
right, just let's be clear about that,
Good
whoever they are.
clarification as well. Thank you, Mr.
It won't be
President.
the police union, but they're sponsoring the event. Is there anything else from the council?
Tis the season.
Okay, is there anything from the audience in closing? I see none. At this time, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion by McIntyre, support by Barr. I think we can safely show 6 tonight. And it's 8:25. We'll be back at 8:35 for the study meeting. Thank you.